Hi, I'm going to tell you a story from a book called Folding Stories. And the reason it's called Folding Stories is because I'll be folding while I tell you the story. And the story will help you remember how to fold. Now, Mattie the Hatter believes that for every person there's a perfect hat. And for every hat there is a perfect person. The trouble is, most people don't know which hats are just right for them, and they end up walking around with mismatched, unhappy hats. Mattie the Hatter knows hats better than she knows anything else in the world, and she believes that hats, too, know exactly which people they belong on. But hats are very secretive. They don't just jump off the shelf onto any unsuspecting person's head. A hat relies on its distinct personality to attract the proper owner. The happiest hats have personalities that match their own. Mattie the Hatter tells her customers that a sure way of knowing that your hat is happy with you is that you're able to find it after a year or so. If your hat is unhappy, it will get lost in the closet, maybe blow away in the wind, or maybe even arrange to go home with someone else. Well, one day, a very quiet young woman tiptoed into Mattie Hatter's hat shop. She glided silently over to the rectangular hats and selected a plain one. And I'm just folding this square. As you can see, I took just a square piece of paper and I folded it from corner to corner. She glided over to the triangular hats section and she picked out a plain one like this and slid it down over her eyes. A smile graced her lips and she said, "This is the hat for me." And it was. Another day, a blushing, freckle-faced boy came in carrying a fishing rod and darted from shelf to shelf until his eyes saw a wide-brimmed hat. So I'm taking this bottom edge and just folding it up about this much to make a brim. My mom says I have to wear the hat to keep the sun out of my eyes, or she won't let me go fishing. What do you think of this one? Just right, said Mattie the Hatter, and it was. Well, a few minutes later, another tall boy came in carrying a fishing rod and said, "I need a hat just like my brother's, but I don't want it to get mixed up with my brother's hat." "No problem," said Mattie the Hatter. So she took another fishing hat off the shelf and turned it over and pulled down the top flap. So she pulled it down so it was about halfway through the brim. Now you have a visor on your hat. You won't get mixed up. "Will it bring me good fishing luck today?" the boy asked. "I believe it will," said Mattie the Hatter. And you know what? It did. Well, another day, there was a boom of thunder and a sudden, unexpected downpour of rain. Everyone had their umbrellas, and a flustered woman with a newspaper clumped to the top of her very curly, stinky hair huffed through the door. "My new hairdo! It will be ruined in the rain. I have to go home right away. Please help me," she pleaded as she picked up gobs of West newspaper out of her stinky hair. "No problem," said Mattie the Hatter. She took the visor fishing hat off the shelf and folded it in half. Okay, so she folded it right in half and said, "Oh, don't worry about the reindeer. Just cover your head with this rain bonnet." "Oh, thank you, thank you. That's exactly what I need to get my new hairdo home safely." And it was. Well, after it stopped raining that day, the clouds did not lighten up as usual, but stayed very dark and gloomy. "I don't like the looks of the sky," said Mattie Hatter. "I think I'll close the shop and go home." Well, just as she was about to lock the front door, a gnarled green hand with thick yellow claws gripped the door and shoved it open. Narrow red eyes could scarcely be seen under her tangled purpled hair. The creature, dressed in black rags and carried an old jagged broomstick. "I need a new hat," hissed the witch. Mattie the Hatter couldn't think of any hat that would want to go home with a witch, but she always tried to please their customers, no matter who they were. Well, perhaps this rain bonnet would do. "I've already sold a dozen of them this afternoon, and it looks like we might get more rain. You could hook it under that very sharp chin of yours." "No," hissed the witch, her harsh voice sent a fearful tremor through the hat shop. "I need a pointed, crooked hat to match my pointed, crooked nose." "Yes, it is quite crooked," said Mattie the Hatter. "Perhaps you could simply hook the rain bonnet to it." "Well, all right, let me see if I can make one for you, but I must warn you, though, some of my hats are rather stubborn. If they don't feel right with you, they'll find their own way to leave." "I know," screeched the witch. "What do you think happened to my other hats? I've never been able to keep a hat on my head for more than a day." "Well, I believe I can make you a crooked hat, but it doesn't come with a money-back guarantee. Once you leave the shop, you're on your own." Well, Mattie the Hatter took the straps of the rain bonnet on both sides and folded them up. Folded it a little toward the back, and she put the other one to match it like that. The witch snatched it with her yellow claws and crammed it over her purple hair. "Well, this looks just right," and she sat on her broom and zoomed away through the door. Just as the witch flew above the shop and was about to vanish, dark clouds came and the most amazing thing happened. The hat sprouted wings and a little beak like this. I'm just taking the front and I'm pushing it down in the inside to make a beak. See that? Well, once the house sprouted wings and a new beak, you know what the hat did? That's right. It flew away. For every person, there's a perfect hat. Okay, so now you have a bird. I made this one out of origami paper. Now you can fold anything you want out of any size paper. Here's a piece of paper from the copy machine. And remember how to make a square. You take the short end, fold it down so it meets the long side. You have this extra piece at the bottom, and you just take your scissors and cut that away. Okay, now you have a square. And you can make another hat or anything else out of that. I'm going to make another one now. Let's see if you remember how to do it. Because it turned out to be a bird hat, I have an old calendar here about birds. So I like this picture of the ducks. I'm just going to carefully tear out that page. Hopefully I won't rip it. There we go. All right. And again, I need to make this square piece of paper rectangle into a square. Take the short end, fold it down to the long side, making sure the edges touch nice and even. And then the leftover piece, I'm just going to cut that right off. Now, let's see if we remember how to fold the bird. Okay. Let me move these out of the way. Here's my square piece of paper. Now, the bird, I'm going to keep the patterned or colored side facing out. And I'm going to fold it in half so that the side I don't want to see is in the inside. So I'm going to fold it in half, corner to corner. Now I have a triangle. And next, I'm going to make my brim. So I'm going to take it about an inch or so from the bottom side and just fold that up. Don't have to be real exact with it. Now I have my brimmed hat. And remember, the next little boy came in and he wanted a brimmed fishing hat too, but he didn't want it to be exactly the same as his brother's. So we turned it over to the opposite side, folded one piece down. I ended up folded one piece down about halfway through the middle of the brim. So now remember, the brother had a hat with a visor. All right? But then it was raining. The woman came in and didn't want to get her hair wet. So we take this and we fold it in half. And now we have our rain bonnet. And then the old witch came in looking for a hat. But she didn't want a rain bonnet. So Mattie took the edges and folded them up. Take the other side and fold that up. And the witch put that on her head. That worked just fine. But then all of a sudden, what happened? The wings went up and the nose came down. And the witch's hat turned into a lovely bird and flew away. Okay, so long till next time. Happy bird flying.